Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and today we are finally going to be talking about the newest album from Neko Case, Hell On. I'm a little bit surprised, in spite of myself, that this is the first time I'm talking about a Neko Case solo album. I mean, I've talked about her in the New Pornographers and with Case Lang Vers, but Neko Case has a distinctive and critically acclaimed presence outside of her other groups and side projects. And considering my fondness for sharp-as-hell songwriting married to vocals overflowing with charisma and production, well, okay, this is where things get a little bit tricky. Because when I took the time to revisit Neko Case's entire discography before now, I found myself naturally being drawn to the alternative country murder ballads that characterized her very early work, like Blacklisted and Fox Confessor Brings the Flood. The jagged guitars working through some really interesting melodies of more ragged production, it just proved so much more distinctive and potent to me in comparison with her slightly more refined and experimental, but more mild work in her records in 2009 and 2013. I'm not saying that either album is bad by any means. Hell, you could make the argument that the writing and hooks, they were sharper than ever, but it couldn't help but feel like some of the greater edge had been tempered or at least compromised. What I was looking to hear was the return of some of that anger and firepower and force of will, or at the very least the production picking up a little bit more righteous fervor, and considering what I had heard surrounding Hell On this year, we could be getting some of the best of both worlds, especially as she corralled a pretty impressive list of collaborators for this project, spanning from perennial frustration of mine, Mark Lanigan, to her bandmates in Case Lang Vers, Katie Lang and Laura Vers, the latter of whom I covered on The Trailing Edge earlier just this year. So yeah, I was looking forward to this kicking a lot of ass, especially with all the critical acclaim that it's been piling up. So, alright, how is Hell On? Okay, this review wound up being a lot harder to put together than I had originally expected, because Hell On is a difficult album in more ways than one. It's absolutely a pretty damn terrific album, but it's also one that defies the easier listening of some of Neko Case's previous records. The song structures, they're more tangled and complex. The production can feel more unruly, the lyrics trending towards territory that seems paradoxically more primal, but also more human and oblique each step of the way. And it's not an album that's really waiting for you to catch up, or is going to make it all that much easier on the audience, either in the compositions or the lyrics. Oh, it might hook you, but getting you further, you're on your own. And on the surface, you might think it would, but with every listen, I found myself further engrossed in the complexities of an album that might as well be one of the best of 2018, or at the very least, very close to that category. Now, a huge part of this is Neko Case herself. She's always had the sort of vocal timbre that conveys both a lot of breadth and depth, able to span melancholic heartbreak to really strident, multi-tracked anthem territory on songs that I could swear are taking some melodic cues from Jim Steinman, which, of course, coming from me, that's a compliment. There are some pretty kick-ass moments here. And even before she decided to pull up Katie Lang, Laura Vers, and half of the New Pornographers for backing vocals on these songs, she is a powerhouse who is smart enough to lean into her bombast when she really needs to, but at the same time she can handle the really reserved, aching ballads opposite Mark Lanigan and Eric Bachman, in the latter case on a cover of one of his songs, and doing it frankly far better than when St. Vincent teamed up with Matt Berninger tried a couple of years back. Now, if I were to criticize anything about the vocals here, it'd be that I would look for them to be a shade more raw, to have some of that come through. If there's an album calling out for a female scream in the vein of Mish Way or Lydia Lovelace, it is Hell On, but that's more a factor of a little too much reverb trying to make these mixes sound as vast and impotent as they really are. And hell, that pretty much steps into my biggest criticism of the album's production as a whole. Maybe a little bit too much reverb and echo, a little lacking in the truly snarled guitar work to match some of the twisting compositions. If there was a record that could have actively used some more grinding bite and heaviness, it really is Hell On. Now, part of this is a factor of producer Bjorn Yttling of Peter, Bjorn, and John, but you do get tracks like Bad Luck and Dirty Diamond that can feel a shade too placid and languid, especially in some of the percussion. Oh, they are catchy as all hell, and they got some really burnished weight in the production thanks to that supple bass and a lot of the deeper guitar grooves, but this record does have some very minor issues with momentum overall, and easing back on the intensity is not always the best choice. choice, at least for me. Because make no mistake, as I said, this record is designed to kind of unsettle your traditional listener, throw them off their game, with the opening track going through two considerable melodic and cadence shifts within the song before returning to the darker, more minor key vibe. A comparison that I've heard made is to Fleetwood Mac's Tusk, and thanks to the richer backing vocals and the heavier swells and some of the old country backing, I do hear it, but Neko Case is pulling on a different, slightly more mature or borderline primal emotional tapestry, where the balance of rich mid-80s synthesizers on Gumball Blue kind of makes sense opposite the baritone sax on Halls of Sarah, or the smoldering intensity in the guitars on Oracle of the Maritimes, or how she kicks the melodies into a lot faster gear on Winnie, or the excellent closing song Pitcher Honey, both of which contain some considerable melodic change-ups and in tempo in their own right, and they actually managed to stick the landing. And we do get some of that sizzle on the extended outro of Curse of the I-5 Corridor, with this really damn solid low-key hook in its own right, and while I personally might wish there's a bit more of that jagged alt-country edge because, hey, it's me, Neko Case can still convey that sense of greater danger and weight without leaning on the production that much. Really, for me again, it would just be gravy. So alright, what is this record really about? Well, let's go back to that word primal that I keep using, because after a good dozen or so listens through this album, there's a strong sense that Neko Case is trying to encapsulate an emotional core that doesn't really fit well with conventional language, and if sold with even a trace of detachment, could ring as a little hollow. I would say it's reminiscent of a force of nature or a minor deity, only for Neko Case to draw the parallel herself on the opening title track, and she's more than capable of selling that. I believe her in that role. But the truth is that a human being embodying this presence has to come from somewhere, and Neko Case is plenty self-aware about her experiences to shape her to get to that point. There is nuance in that framing, and she leans into the environmentalist and feminist parallel. Look at Halls of Sarah, where the parallel between a woman and the environment is reinforced, leading very heavily into the water metaphors because, duh, and it's a natural fit all across this album, where artistic projection and exploitation is sketched in very sharp parallel to how humanity uses the larger world in that environment, which is done again, but with a twist on Dirty Diamond. Now, we'll come back to that specifically, but what's also very important to note here is that Neko Case does not lose herself in metaphor, and she doesn't lose track of the humanity, both of her and the larger world and people around her, including the male figures. That's one of the reasons why the Curse of the I-5 Corridor hits so damn hard for me, as she meets a guy from her misbegotten past, and she contemplates what could have been if she had stayed with him, and that she had fucked all the guys she'd wanted to be. She did kind of idolize him in that position, but even all those moments, it's not coming from a place of blame or accusation, but wistful regret, and how he might just be as much of an elemental force as she is, just of a different stripe, which is then reinforced in devastating fashion on the cover of Sleep All Summer. To quote Eric Bachman there, "I would change for you, but babe, that doesn't mean I'm gonna be a better man." But that past experience has shaped her, from those who would seek to elevate her naturalistic intensity on Oracle of the Maritimes, to the traumatizing memories of My Uncle's Navy, and going back to Dirty Diamond, she's not unaware of how that might have tarnished her in some way. The metaphorical usage of oil is excellent here, showing how the refinement and decay of the past can be used for fueling the fires nowadays, for better, but also very possibly for worse in her life. But from that self-aware acknowledgement of that world is inclined to commodify that wild experience in the last line of Albion to her genuine appreciation of the adopted family and the new pornographers that has supported her passion and intensity. She then sketches that natural parallel to, well, her art, the natural outgrowth of that emotion, and whether it would be perceived as pitch or honey by the audience. And the answer becomes, who cares? The wildness suits you better. We just want to hear it. Reflective of that symbiotic artist-audience relationship and some truly awesome positive reinforcement. It's a fantastic way to end the album, and I really did love it. I appreciated that emotional climax. And really, I could go on about some of the extended metaphorical connections and the symbolism of this album for days. It's so rich, from the fascinating usage of implied sexuality in a historical context on Oracle of the Maritimes, to the Amazonian empowerment symbolism of Winnie that has a great climax point, to the layers of dejected frustration that comes in the face of great hardship on Bad Luck. And really, part of that is because there are so many layers to this album to really untangle. It's a dense listening experience, but it's so damn catchy and potent that it rarely feels as difficult as it should, which makes it a wonder in accessibility, even if I might nitpick to want a little bit more edge, but again, that's me. But as it is, I can't help but feel that this is a real tour de force for Neko Case as an album, challenging without losing the infectiousness, a ton of personality and charisma, and the sort of writing that makes me want to put off this review longer so I've got more excuses to listen to the album. So yeah, you can't tell, light 9 out of 10, absolutely recommended. Folks, this is an album that will take some work to really delve into, but if there's one that will be so worth it in 2018, it's definitely this. Check it out. It kicks ass. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Yeah, I know I'm late to this one, but man, there was a lot to untangle here. And as again, I wanted to keep on listening to this and not move on to my schedule. I was enjoying it that much. But yeah, you want to buy it, links down there below. Please do buy it. She really does deserve it. Got the poll up there. I'm curious where more diehard Neko Case fans fall on this. I don't think it has the edge of something like Blacklisted, but I still can appreciate the level of density of this record. It does fit along that lane. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you guys want to get involved in my scheduling process or help support the channel, link to my Patreon is right over there, where 3 times a week you guys get to vote on my schedule, and once a week for the higher tier contributors, you guys get to add albums, movies, or even a top 10 list to that schedule. More details right over there. If you want to see my schedule, it's linked on my Instagram down there below. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.